This program is brought to you by Dobinson's, DTX 500, Mighty C, Riverside, Bahandi, Oh My Pastries, Chong Tapsilogan and Sizzlers, Ting Ting's Native Food.
But that template was done long before Jimi Hendrix. But lain naman kay Hendrix because Hendrix was a power trio. Hendrix sang at the same time played guitar. So without Jimi Hendrix, there is no Jimi Hendrix experience. But there is a power quartet nga ginatawag naton with Van Halen. Naragid siya up front, which was totally the same niche nga ginabrihan sang Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin was blues based. You have their the power, the voice of Robert Plant. Pero ari sa kilid si Jimmy Page may iyaman sa iya nga. And then he would do the guitar solo with the violin bow, diba? So every generation had their own. But in his time, like Eddie in his time, with the technology at that time, and with all ng naging tipo niya to from Queen, from Van Halen, from Black Sabbath, and even to think, no, now speaking of Black Sabbath, like Ozzy Osbourne went solo on his solo efforts, he always had a penchant for finding really good guitar players. Sang nagasolo siya. And there was one guitar player nga if he did not die early of his age by an accident, siguro tupong-tupong lagaway sila ni Van Halen. That's Randy Rhoads.
Siya din.
Randy Rhoads was Ozzy Osbourne's guitar player for Bark at the Moon, you know, mga Crazy Train. Ang lain naman niya kay Randy Rhoads because he really he had classical elements like I don't know how to explain that. Let's say what you have with full-on rock sa Van Halen is actually the mga blues bass niya. Pero Randy Rhoads took a lot from classical. I'm not really sure kung classically trained siya. I never read somewhere or basta lipat na ko. Pero may ara siya nga usually ginagamit na iyang mga forms or mga progressions ni the guy from Deep Purple, Richie Blackmore. Nga do ka kumpuso kung panason mo ang kung let's say panason mo ang distortion or ang drive, it's going to sound like this. Dito. Do kumpuso nga do ka
harana.
Yeah, those are basically classical elements that you have. So Randy Rhoads was really amazing at that time. Doon sila, Ozzy was doing solo career, Van Halen was here, but then he died of a plane accident so early. So Eddie was there. It was his moment, it was his time. So he had so much to give, and then tanan-tanan tong na-observe niya, ginambalta, mga influences niya, guro, ginpasulod niya tanan sa iyang sound niya sa ulo niya. And it was his moment, it was his genius. And he was already a genius by that time.
Ano ang madumduman mong solo ni Van Halen nga ginagusto mo ginsundon sa una?
Sa kadamo, guro, hindi na kuma...
Pero ano ang doon na perfect mo gin?
I think amo man lang guro from the working man, I think we did jump early at time.
Yeah.
Sang mga there was a time in the 90s that I was so pisan. I would try to learn songs nga wala ko banda. Kaya 90s. I think I remember I was doing a lot of wood shedding. We call that wood shedding. Listening sa cassette, play rewind. I think I picked up a lot of bits sa iya mga ginapang obra, pero not whole solos, but I was listening to this album, a very controversial album title. You know, the title of the album was For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. If you get the abbreviations of that, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge.
Oh, fuck.
So, amo ng album, grabe mo brother ni Van Halen. He had Right Now, and he was like, what is this guy trying to do? Now, ang isa ka butang, amo to namin ng balmo gina, as a guitar player, the disciplines of Eddie Van Halen at that period, at 80s, and then moving on to the late 80s to the 90s, it wasn't easy for let's say, I can identify myself growing as a guitar player at that era. Why? there was no internet. Like, how would you know what a tapping was? Paano ba? Ano na siyang guitar tap? Which, of course, he's most identified with. And he owned it. But documents would say it was Harvey Mandel who started that technique in the guitar. Pero sa interview naman niya ni Eddie, he said he saw it from Jimmy Page, Heartbreaker solo, and then he ripped it off and then tried to innovate something with that.
Ano na siya?
And the tap is actually like this. He ends his solo, we'll be talking about a little eruption. It's like this. Technically it's this. It's not picking the guitar strings. It's hammering on and pulling off. So if this is a hammer on, if your guitar is high gain, pareho sinin are na tanan, no? If your guitar is high gain, it's gonna sound because electronically pick up yan na. And you pull off, it's exactly what I'm doing. Pull off, ginakalit na nakahit mo siya pabalik. Ambulansya, no? Ambulansya, tutukar ko din ni Tia Vanilla, no? So, ang idea, while he was watching TV daw, he was watching Jimmy Page. He said, what if I'm gonna make this as if I shorten the guitar, I make this as the permanent reference note, this one, and then come up with use two of my fingers, and I still have one ear. So I can like, so he does a lot of that sa eruption. And by the way, what also put Eddie on the map was on the first album, there's his solo piece that the pinakagrabe niya piece, of course, that's called Eruption. And it was all guitar for pila ka minutes.
Madumduman mo pa yun.
Wait, kung ginigin tunan, nahadlo ko. Because like, you have to really find time to learn that and get the nuance out of it. But it has a figure like that. So. Ano gani? Lipat ko? Things like that. And then he would go and tap like, he would do a lot of those things in between his solos. He did that sa Beat It. He does that all the time. So that's a tapping thing na kilala gid si Eddie. So una-una ko no gani, I think for those nga unfamiliar with that, when Harvey Mandel, the other originator of that technique, started doing that in a club, ang iba niya kuno mga pud sa musician siya pamati nagkaladlaw. Kasi like, what the hell is that? What are you trying to do with the guitar?
Pero, despite sa iyang techniques, how to make the guitar sound, how to use equipment like ang pedals, etc. At the heart of it is the fact nga si Van Halen had musicality.
Yes.
Kabalo siya mag-ubra musika.
Yes.
Kaya malimbawa, kung may kwarta ka, pwede ka man lang kabakaltan ang gamit mo. But if you don't know how to create music,
right,
from here,
and they come from a very musical family. I remember I had the cassette tucked in somewhere. The album was not their most loved one. It's called Diver Down. But sa Diver Down, may ara na da part si Eddie Van Halen nga nagatukar sa clarinet. Yeah, so they really come from a musical family. He was playing the clarinet. For that, though filler lang nila for the album. And he was playing this classical figure of a clarinet. So he was really a musical person. And when he had that so much ideas and music in him, the sound was secondary. Ara na yung adaan sa sulod niya. So maski ano yung gitara uyatan niya, maski ano yan.
Or bisan ano nga instrument.
Bisan ano instrument niya, pagwa ay ginagyapon, Eddie Van Halen gid siya gyapon.
Finally, Beto, before I ask you if you want to play a piece for Eddie Van Halen, ano ina, no?
Oh.
But ang ako lang finally is, do you think that si Eddie Van Halen was not the first? Hindi siya first there was B.B. King, there was Eric Clapton, etc., etc. But out of these firsts, he came out with something different, something original.
Yeah. That's it. Ang ginpangwa niya ng influences, he was, as we were talking about that, it was the right moment at the right time. And then he had this very powerful band behind him. Now, one thing also that people need to see is that it was a power quartet, meaning wala keyboards. And by the way, ang Jump, siya man na keyboards sa recording. So this guy is really a musical genius. It was his idea. Ang mga Love Comes Walking In, he plays the keyboards. It was a power quartet, which meant after the drums and the bass, ang groove sa likod, there was no other instrument. So I think, ako niya personal ko lang I think because he was the lone guitar player, he was occupying the middle frequency of the spectrum and the high frequency, the rhythm and the soloing at the same time. It pushed his technique more in better places. He was on fire creatively, trying to fill the whole space up. Kaya sa wood.
So he did push the envelope.
Grabe nga pag-push the envelope. So he was playing rhythm and at the same time was playing lead. Before, may harap na ihakay in the old school, ikaw lang rhythm, ako malid. Hindi ko balo mag-lead. No? Ikaw lang rhythm, amo ka lang niya, chords ka lang. Damo na. Pero Eddie, he was all over the place. Because the situation he was in, the band he was in, afforded it. And he had this very great vocalists nga nag-front niya para sa iya. So all he had to do was think, what am I going to do to fill this spectrum up? So, amo na nga sa Eddie Van Halen nga School of Guitar Playing, there are so many things he has brought into the vocabulary. A lot of people do not know, pero the way Eddie played rhythm while the vocalist was singing was really good. Like parehas na. He can come up with parts like that chunky rhythm part while ang singer gakanta, as opposed to like
Hindi siya tamaran.
Hindi siya tamaran. Ginapaubray gid iya kamot. So with this rhythm playing that was solid, that style of rhythm playing, amo na panawag namon sa guitar speak, chunky bla nung unod-unod bala nga klase.
Kidul.
Kidul nga busog-busog bla. Maamo ka ginihab na niya. Maski sa jump sa punta niya, may harap na sa sang mga Can't you see me standing here? Got my back against the record machine. And then when he would solo, and when it is time to do the solo, he just really rips it up and brings the song into the next level. Kaya kadamo-damo siya bag of tricks. So you can go to YouTube and then check out how this guy has come up with different sounds from the guitar with just this. And then, well, he had a bridge, a different type of bridge. A first generation Floyd Rose. Amo na sang isa sa secret weapon niya. A Floyd Rose is different from this because this is a tremolo bridge for the electric guitar speak, no? What it just got strings at the back. I don't know if you will see it. Got strings at the back. Nya kon hamon mo ni, kag i-drop mo ni siya down, manaog sa. Hindi mabalik sa. So, permita ni siya mabatian sa mga kung sa mga sanguna, mga panila, sa mga like 60s.
Mga ballads.
Ballads, and the instrumental rock. You hear, Domingo.
Gina-prolong niya.
Gina-bend niyang notes.
Ginabakod niya.
Yeah, so what Hendrix did for that was abuse it, nga naghimo, nagidya tanan na lang nga tunog. Things like that, no? So,
halimbawa ko ni Dandansoy mo, abi. Ako pamati, madunan mama ba?
Baka hindi pa.
Sino ka lain to yaw?
Sabad. No? So what Eddie used was a different kind of this thing here, the bridge, because it locked the strings here. So may locking siya, meaning maski ano yan ikalampos, abusaran niya, ilapako niya, hindi na siya maglibag. Kaya nakaset na din, nakalock na. So he can come up with a lot of sounds, let's say do harmonics, a harmonic, or basically a harmonic, an open harmonics like this. This is the regular sound. This is the harmonic sound. You see it? And then you have another fifth harmonic. So, amo nang ginapanggamit ni Eddie nga, he would incorporate those things sa harmonics, the tap, of course, the tap. This one, amo na nga figure. But interestingly, about the tap, let me tell you a little story about that. The first thing I saw how a tap worked was not from Eddie Van Halen. Because remember, that was before internet age, di ba? So, kabalo kasi noon ako nakita nag-tap, si Johnny Depp, sa 21 Jump Street. There was this episode, they were trying to hunt a drug ring that also had a front for a band. And he said, yeah, I saw what you did on stage. How did you do that? So we started to be like, oh, so that's it? Oh, really? Amo na gali, no? So Eddie did that while he would solo. He would use harmonics. Atong gingamit ko gina. Actually, it's not magic. The harmonics thing. It's the geek in me. It's physics. Yeah. Physics, di ba? Physics, you have first harmonic, second harmonic. You get different frequencies by altering the length of the string. So, ang kakatabo, instead yung mag-vibrate as this, i-shorten mo siya into half, so you'll cancel out some frequencies, you get the high frequency. And then you shorten the other string, you get amo lang ng gagwa. You get this one. Pero kung 1985 niya, kag may gaamo na nga son, mabuang kay ano tuman?
Kay wala pa mo.
Inanuya tuman.
Oh.
and honestly, it took me 2 years to figure that one. Because this is interesting. I'll try to. I don't know if we have time or what. The impact of let's say the impact of Eddie Van Halen, well, the impact sa kabilugan worldwide and sa music scene is, well, that's very obvious. That's why we're doing this tribute to him. But locally, Bacolod City.
Sige, be.
Bacolod City. At the era of the 80s, where classic rock and hard rock was at the pinnacle, and then Van Halen came in, no? Ano ang naobra niya di kagagit sinunok pa na paminsan po namin diguro idagdag ko ni kay Julius so that at least the people would know. We didn't have much of places di ba? 70s was Jumbos. Jumbos, early 80s. It was hard rock, it was Scorpions, it was...
Jumbos is now Bongbong's Barquillos.
Barquillos, pero sa babaw, back up. Amo gina kay Seawall. So you'd be so happy with the music and look at the sea.
Gamay pa ko to.
Panginhas.
Siopaw mo na yung kilala mo.
So it was those times. Jumbos, you have Shakey's, and you had, and then at the later part it was, well, Gaisano Food Plaza. And my sister had a band. She was in a band before I was. She sang, and Subo, ang ilang guitar player, remains to be one of the influences. The pioneers, or let's say the pillars of music and guitar playing there is a city as of now is still active, si John Ali. Pare John Ali, napadog naman siya. John Ali Recupero. He went through a lot of stages, and this Mr. Showmanship. Of course, damo pag idiban. No, we can drag everything here. Mga kotablas no niya Melo kung panday sino pag. No, the brother Marlon si Pip, the late June Kilantang, utod ni Alan Kay. Those were the amazing guitar players. Kundi Ike Agsam, Orville, a lot of them, Nick Bukasan. So, what Eddie Van Halen really subconsciously brought to them, because these were the studios guys, because Music was their bread and butter. They had to learn. And it was the rock era, so you had to have all these things. They usually, on really lucky nights, they would afford generally a solo spot on his own. So he would be there at the stage, this tall guy who had so much Van Halen in him, and later Steve Vai. And he would solo and solo and solo, and for 2 years I was trying to figure out, ginaano yan ang gitara nga, nag-aamo na man. Kasi may mga antics pa sa which obviously came from Van Halen School of Showmanship, like, magsabot do ginahilanat. Nag-ano to? Ano na to?
Naging kulibra.
Kulibra ko, pre. Kalain. Tapos nakita ko yung Neo Color sa TV. They were doing the same thing. And then my father was a guitar player, a totally different school. He was doing jazz and fusion and standard stuff. He was this unimpressed. Because he came from Olongapo and he has seen the real deal. So Olongapo and Umumana. Pero sila ni John was doing this, and I was so amazed at that. And what Eddie's influence was there. Whether acknowledged or not, it was there.
From technique to antics.
From technique to antics. So, John Ali, pre, John, kung galanta ko na idol, tagig kaya yapon, pre. Para sa sarabya, subok. He would do a solo, the tapping thing, you know. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And before they would break into an 80s, a 90s treasure piece, nga also rewritten the rock music, the Pinoy rock rules at that time. You know what song was that?
Ano?
No Si Balasi. Kaysa No Si Balasi, first time na ito nabatian sa bilog ng Pilipinas, may tapping apart. Yeah, it's like a... No Si Balasi! So, everyone was, ano to man? Ano to ka-guitar part?
Adik ito siya mo.
Generally would have fun and have that impressionable who look a lot like Van Halen at that time. So, maybe Eddie did not know, or Eddie is aware of this impact globally, pero sa mga maski diri aton sa Bacolod, ara, to the point that John Ali had his red guitar, isugid ko na lang, pre. Gin-stripe ya pag ginaya diri sang tigib. Van Halen pag gidya, red pag gidya kay gwapo. I mean,
Pero if you are to play a riff in honor of Van Halen, what would that be?
no, I don't know. Would that be worthy? I don't really know.
Hindi, not necessarily iya kanta, no?
Iya kanta, no?
Pero in memoriam siya.
Siguro in memoriam siya, I cannot do a solo of that because pero like I like Eddie's rhythm parts basically that covers the solos, wala problema, grabe gid siya. No, he's untouchable. He's a guitar god, guitar god. Pero if siguro in the pop rock scene that I stole a lot from Eddie. Those are the figures that go like this, eh. What's that? Gosh, sound tune hindi siya locking bimo. So this muted part, the mute guitar, and do a rhythm part like. No, he would always use that.
Beto Tiano, thank you so much for being here.
Salamat, man. Thank you.
Salamat, kid. And that was our special Soundbox Sessions for Eddie Van Halen.
Right.
With Banjo C Hinolan and our guest this afternoon, Beto Tiano, Julius Mariveles for the NX News.